Welcome back to Tim Unscripted. This is not really a how-to video as much as I did this video. What you're seeing on your screen is an open source GitHub repo. And if you notice the title, it says OpenClaw Agents. So I've taken a bit of a break doing videos on BMAD. And it's been intentional because a lot of the AI conversations coming out of some of the discussions that we have weekly at work have informed some of my thinking and really inspired me to do some additional things above and beyond BMAD. BMAD, of course, is a really great agentic persona framework to build with. Very opinionated, very well focused, very well structured. And by well focused meaning, while I may not agree with the way that the agents are, written up and described in their personas and whatnot, I realized that what they're able to do based on the structure, based on the processes that they follow, they get outcomes achieved. Especially if you're doing things as a solo person who's on the business side of product development, like this guy right here. It allows you to actually get stuff built and be able to show others the art of the possible. What is, rattling around in your head that you might want to build in software. And so BMAD has been a great way of me getting some of these wild and crazy ideas out of my head and actually into a digital environment. So I've taken a bit of an off-ramp from that for a period of time. I will probably pick this up at some later date to be to be defined, I don't know, whatever, in the future. Suffice it to say, if you've been watching any of my stuff, I record weeks, if not months, in advance of when things actually end up debuting on my YouTube channel and then getting cross-posted over to LinkedIn. This being no exception. This will probably drop sometime in May, and we're in April right now. So this is me doing my work, getting content ready, and of course, setting it up for premiere. So let's get back to the repo, because this is really the fascinating thing. So one of the discussions that we had was around the concept of evaluating the actual performance of agents, or evaluation-driven development, similar to test-driven development, just a variation. And so I was like, what the heck? Everybody's talking about OpenClaw. I'll get on the bandwagon. Let me talk about OpenClaw, but let me talk about it in a very different fashion. Let me talk about it from the standpoint of, hey, guess what? I'm going to build some stuff, and it's designed to work with OpenClaw. It is not OpenClaw. So I took a very different path on this, and I said, I'll just build agents. Agents are understandable. Agents are easy. Anthropic has put out quite a bit of documentation around agents and how to build them. And OpenClaw being a thing, was like, this is a great variation of something that's a hot and popular conversation piece in the AI community today. So I built it out in a weekend. But I did it differently. And this is me thinking through, okay, I know how to build software, not as a software developer, but as an orchestrator. So what do I need to have in place in order to build agents in a similar fashion? Agents being a bit different because it really is markdown files. But I did two things. And I already mentioned the one, but I did the other as well, which is I used the approach of test-driven development. So there is a test harness that is on the front end as well as the back end. Write these files the right way the first time and make sure they pass tests, in addition to, oh, by the way, evaluate over time how well these agents perform. And so this is the repository that is the result of that. And it's a pretty compact repository. It is specifically designed for any person who wants to write an agent structure for OpenClaw to be able to do that. And this is about, I would say, as simple a development project as you could possibly get. Now, I take it a distance that most people would never do it because I'm me. And I come from a professional consulting background, but even prior to that, I've been in IT for a lot of years. I want to give the best example of the art of the possible, not to set a high bar, but to act as an inspiration and to act as a way of informing your own work. And so you can see here, my evals and tests are set up. This is running out of Python for test-driven development, folks. I'm not joking when I say I'm doing things rigorously. Then, of course, the table of contents and subsequently all the documentation and all of the different types of agents that I've got. So I do want to dig in because this is one of those areas where I'm really leaning on my techie side. I'm really leaning on my inner nerd because I didn't build anything that I wouldn't want to use myself. And because I'm building for myself, that means that I'm really building for an audience of one, but I'm building it because when I use these agents, I want them to work, and I want them to work logically, and I want them to have certain documentation behind them. So let's get into these agents. So this is my first crack at any of this. What I do want to show you is the fact that there is a substantial amount of, I'm trying to think where my, this is funny, a substantial amount of diagramming that went into all of this. And you can see, I didn't skimp on any of my documentation. You know, this is all thoroughly documented. And so if you're already having your eyes glaze over, you know, the video is really a summation of all of this. It's intended not to bore you, but to show you that, you know what, I did the right thing by you from the standpoint of I wanted to give you something very robust to start with and extend for yourself, even to the point where I've got subagents. So I decided to go with an orchestrator. And you might be going, well, why would you do that? And the real reason for doing that is the fact that I find that having an orchestrator is a pretty effective way to get agent alignment from the start and to get work pushed to where it needs to be. And by that, I mean, the orchestrator is not the one doing the work, performing the work. The orchestrator is deciding which subagents should be doing that because they're even more tightly focused. They have guardrails that are very narrow. And suffices to say, this is one of those things that I've learned through the process of experimentation works quite well. So what I want to do is I do want to find the diagrams that I was referring to because these are useful to inform thinking. So I'm going to put this on pause and I'll rejoin you once I've got the diagrams pulled up. So guess what? I don't have the diagrams in this repo. What I do have is I have the diagrams in my private repo, the build repo, which actually is a lot messier than this clean, publicly facing repository. I should probably just make sure that the diagrams get in here, or at least some variation of said diagrams that give you an idea as to how the agents and subagents kind of work together. I do want to point out, though, that even in the submission of the agents that you would want to build using this repo, you know, in contributing to this open source project, I've thought of a lot of things, even right down to the fact that I was smart enough to look at community standards and go, hey, have I hit all the criteria that meet the community standards for an open source repo? And I did not do that on some of the other earlier repos that I opened up for contribution, but I did this this one for the first time and retrofitted the lessons that I learned out of doing this one, because I do feel that it is very valuable to set things up the right way. And so this is my effort to even evolve my skill as far as the administration of repositories and to make them even better for people who are coming in and wanting to be a part of the journey. And so I put a code of conduct together. Also put contributing guidelines, which is very good for everybody who wants to contribute, both for the official template with the agents as well as the official template for the subagents. Like I said, readiness tests and test-driven development expectations. Honestly, AI has given us the ability to do a lot of the types of things that took us probably more time than what they should have several years ago. Also, the continuous integration validation. I've thought of a lot of things. These are the things that I want you to take a look at for yourself once you've had a chance to watch this video and go, hey, this may be something that I'm interested in contributing to. Also, of course, the obligatory open source and security. And so my security is set as well. This is intended to be a fairly lightweight repository to work in. There's not a ton of constraints. You can see Copilot and I have been building on it as the contributors. This is my initial public release. I've done a lot of things, and I'm dropping this video at a point where OpenClaw is a hot button topic, one of the fastest growing contributing as well as starred repos on GitHub. I know Anthropic has been kind of carving away, due to a number of concerns, not the least of which probably money-related concerns, carving away capability to compete. OpenClaw being a harness, being a gateway to interact with large language models with a certain degree of structure. I say all of that to say this. OpenClaw may or may not go away. I wanted not to necessarily jump on the bandwagon, but I definitely wanted to do something that was complementary to the OpenClaw movement and to act as a guard or as a guide, as an inspiration for personal exploration to see where you might want to go, and just kind of having a good starting foundation, because at the beginning and the end, we're always going to need to have professional software developers around, regardless of the fidelity and the capability of the large language models or multimodal models behind the scenes. That is one of those things that I firmly believe is just not going to change. But the way that we work with large language models, with multimodal models, is going to be changing. We are going to be doing much more work around supervision and oversight and orchestration. This is the way forward in software development. And I say the way because I'm not being very specific. I'm talking in general terms. This just happened to be one of those great places where I could say, cool, I'm going to tie up what I'm already doing to a thing that is a hot topic in a conversation, bring them together and do it in a different fashion that doesn't actually touch anything related to the actual code, but acts as a complement to OpenClaw. So I hope you enjoy this video. Again, this is off the beaten path and away from BMAD and the whole BMAD experiments. This is an OpenClaw foray, if you will. And I wanted to say thank you for your time and watching this video. You have just finished another Tim Unscripted video. That was not a Tim Unscripted how-to. Take care, and I will talk to you soon.